I am in California this week, so I have rented an electric car, this Nissan Leaf. And I've actually been very impressed with it. Getting off the freeway, and I am going to disable the E pedal and now re-enable it, and the car slows down drastically. In many ways, driving an electric car is not that different from driving a gasoline or diesel powered car, and in many ways it is very different. One of the main differences that you'll notice has to do with the regenerative braking. The other difference is the acceleration. Because you have so much low-end torque with the electric car, when you first start moving, you have a lot more power than you would expect, and it fades as you go faster. You can accelerate from a complete stop to moving at a reasonable rate of speed much faster than you expect you would be able to, and then that dissipates. But the other difference is when you stop, like I'm stopping for the stop sign, all that I do is take my foot off the accelerator and the vehicle stops completely on its own with no need to hit the brake pedal. This one pedal driving makes it very easy to operate the car, because you literally never have to use the brake pedal unless you need to make an abrupt stop. But I am finding that I practically hardly ever use the pedal at all. The Nissan Leaf is a very practical vehicle. Despite its small size, it actually has a lot of cargo capacity. The interior is sufficiently large. I'm 5'11" and I have absolutely no trouble fitting in here comfortably. And the ergonomics are very good as well. The problem with using the E-pedal in an area like this is when I'm going down a hill like I'm doing right now, I have to turn it off so that I can just take my foot off the accelerator and let gravity pull me down the hill. If I had the E-pedal on, the car would slow down to regenerate the battery. and it won't let me just use gravity to pull the car down the hill. Now that I'm coming to a light, I can use the E-pedal to slow the car down. The car slows down to a complete stop purely on the power of the regenerative braking, which can actually bring me to a stop before I wanted to. Now I have the E-pedal back on, so when the light turns green, I can go, and the E-pedal will take care of everything. It really is a very impressive system. They've done a very good job of engineering, but you need to have this E-pedal on-off switch right where you can get at it easily, and they do. Now I'm coming to another red light. I take my foot off the accelerator. The E-pedal slows the car down to a complete stop, and it was slowing me down too soon. It actually works too well, so I have to give it a little more accelerator, and we're stopped, and the car is holding at a complete stop without me ever touching the brake pedal. Very impressive system. Now that I'm going again, come to another stop. And purely on E-pedal, it slows me down. Even though I'm going downhill, not much, but downhill, it still brings me to a complete stop purely on E-pedal. I'm in Southern California. I'm in an area with a lot of steep downhills and steep uphills, and I have hardly used the brake pedal. The ergonomics of the Nissan Leaf are actually very good. The display here has a map, and then of course controls for music. It will link to your phone. All the basic things that most cars have nowadays, but the layout of the system is actually very simple. It even shows you where the charging stations are so that you can get another charge. Furthermore, the instrument panel gives you all the pertinent information in terms of your direction, your how much charge you have instead of a fuel gauge, how far you can go, and all your controls for your E-pedal. Right here, turn it off, turn it on, eco mode, and the shifter to move into reverse or drive. As you can see, reverse is forward, drive is rear. It's actually a very good layout. You also have all your basic controls on the steering wheel. Most cars do nowadays, but the way this one is set up is very easy. And see if we need a charge. Shows us exactly where the charging stations are. As with most modern cars, you push a button to start it. However, this button is lower than I'm used to. But that's all it does. You push the button and you are ready to go. There is no engine to start. As you can see, you push this to the left and forward for reverse, or rear for drive. The shifter simply moves to the left, and if you pull back, it goes into drive, but the car will not move until you hit the accelerator pedal. If you push the shifter forward, you are in reverse. That is all you have to do. You move the gear shifter into the position you want and go. Overall, I am very impressed with this car. I am executing a very tight corner here just to see how tight we can go. And it is very impressive. Even for as small as this car is. I just made a very tight corner. When you reach your destination, all you have to do is push the button. It shuts the car off, puts it in park. The car moves just a little bit, which is how you know it went into park. And then you are done. You can see I have 132 miles left before I need another recharge. The sign does not appear to be working, but it made a beep. And it is charging. You can tell from the light. These Volta EV charging stations are free, but they use the Type 2 connector here. And it does not charge as fast as the EV Go, but you also do not have to pay for it. So, the SAE J1772 chargers that Volta uses are not nearly as fast as the ones that I used at EV Go. However, they do have the advantage of being free. So even if you have to take a little longer charging, can't beat free. The Nissan Kicks looks to be about the same size as the Nissan Leaf. but the Kicks runs on gasoline and the Leaf is electric. This is a 2021 Nissan Leaf, which I have rented from Enterprise, since I do not have an electric car, but I'm in California, and that is the thing to do here, is to drive an electric car. So, I've driven electric cars before several times, but this will be my first chance to test one for a longer period of time. So here we go. Obviously, electric car, no engine to start. The problem with using the E-pedal in an area like this is when I'm going down a hill like I'm doing right now, I have to turn it off so that I can just take my foot off the accelerator and let gravity pull me down the hill. If I had the E-pedal on, the car would slow down to regenerate the battery. And it won't let me just use gravity to pull the car down the hill. Now that I'm coming to a light, I can use the E-pedal to slow the car down. If the car slows down to a complete stop purely on the power of the regenerative braking, which can actually bring me to a stop before I want it to. Now I have the E-pedal back on, so when the light turns green, I can go, and the E-pedal will take care of everything. It really is a very impressive system. They've done a very good job of engineering, but you need to have this E-pedal on-off switch right where you can get at it easily, and they do. Now I'm coming to another red light. I take my foot off the accelerator. The E-pedal slows the car down to a complete stop, and it was slowing me down too soon. It actually works too well. So I have to give it a little more accelerator. And we're stopped. And the car is holding at a complete stop without me ever touching the brake pedal. Very impressive system. Now that I'm going again, stop. And purely on E-pedal, it slows me down. Even though I'm going downhill, not much, but downhill, it still brings me to a complete stop purely on E-pedal. I'm in Southern California. I'm in an area with a lot of steep downhills and steep uphills, and I have hardly used the brake pedal. Hours of charging only brought it from 42 to 60%. So this is my first time at a Tesla supercharger. Let's see if I can figure this out. I have been at this Tesla supercharger for only a few minutes, and I have already seen the battery increase very quickly. This works so much better than the overnight charging with the standard electrical outlet. If you own a Tesla, I guess this is how you have to do it. Well, I have already, in a matter of under 15 minutes, gotten as much charge as I got in 12 hours out of the wall outlet. These superchargers absolutely are the way to go. I will say, having this, basically the entire roof is a sunroof, is kind of nice. Because basically anywhere you go, you have full visibility above. I've had sunroofs before, but they were never the whole roof. There is a separate sunroof for the front seat and the back seat. One thing I really like is when I turn the turn signal on, you get a side view camera that shows exactly what is going on behind and to the left, or behind and to the right, depending on which turn signal you have on. If it takes this long to charge an electric car using a standard electrical outlet, then it is not practical to recharge a car overnight off of a wall outlet, unless you use very little charge during the day. The Tesla knew it was going to a supercharger, and it automatically opened the charging port when I got here. So that charging can begin the moment I plug in. And it preconditioned the battery for faster charging. "45 minutes may seem like a longer time to charge the car, but it is a whole lot faster than charging it at home." You can see the price for the charge increasing as we sit here, and the charge level increasing. In the time that it took to walk into the gas station next door and buy a soda, the car charged considerably. And while the charge did cost substantially more than the soda so far, it is still only around the charge of a gallon of gas next door. And a gallon of gas would be substantially less distance than that charge. So at this rate of charging, not quite 100 times what we were getting at the house on a regular outlet, this car charges. Really, it took about as much charge in a few minutes as it took all night. The ability to add 262 miles to your range for every hour you're here is good enough. It's not fast. It's not as fast as refueling a car next door. with gasoline, but this is sufficient. So I am here at a Tesla supercharger that, according to Google Maps, is a 250 kilowatt charger, but according to the screen here, I am only actually getting 51 kilowatts. So this will take longer than I anticipated to charge the car, and longer than it would take to fuel a car with gas or diesel. Even taking longer to charge because I'm only getting 50 kilowatts instead of 250 kilowatts. And the actual charge that I'm getting changes. It was a little higher earlier, but this may take 5 times as long as I anticipated, but is still the fastest way around here to charge an electric car. And if it takes half an hour, and I was fairly low when I pulled in, if it takes half an hour to charge, that's good enough. I can walk next door to the convenience store and get a soda and sit here and charge the car. 49 kilowatts now. But, and I don't know if that's because there are other cars using it. It looks like other vehicles have pulled up since I got here. But the charge will still be fast enough. I mean, from a practicality point of view, this is not perfect, but it is good enough. So, I mean, I am playing the cards I'm dealt. But I'm already at 80% charge. This is enough. In a space of a little over 15 minutes, I've gone from a half charge to 81%. So, this is sufficient. I have enough charge for today, but I'm going to go ahead and charge it all the way up. So we were closer to 300 miles per hour when I got here, and we're now down almost to 200 because the amount of power it is putting out has dropped. And that actually may be because as the battery gets a fuller charge, it is not able to absorb as quickly. Or it may be because there are several other vehicles charging here. But oh, that one just left. And the number did not get up. It's just me and that other. And we are still at 45 kilowatts, so it is not due to other vehicles charging. 200 miles per hour of... So it must be because the battery is getting more full. But still, the only charging me $4.32 for this amount of charge. This is still a very cost-effective way to do this, even if it slows down. Instead of having a handle to pull to get out of the car, there is a button that pops the door. What I like about having this charging station here be right next to a gas station is convenient access to a convenience store that I can go in and get a drink or whatever I want while I am charging the car. the handle to open the door is inset. So the handle comes out when you open the door, and there is a button to push to open the door from the inside. So now that I have got the battery to 90% charge, which I did from barely over half for $5.32, the charging rate has dropped down to 29 kilowatts. So the charging speed definitely slows down a lot as the battery gets closer to fully charged. And it warns of that. The battery is almost full, charging at the expected rate for present battery energy level. Expect the charging rate to slow as battery approaches maximum charge level. I suppose that for routine driving, it probably makes more sense to only charge the battery to 80-85% or so, because you can do that very quickly. And then you may have to charge more frequently, but the individual charges will be much faster. But if you need to take a longer road trip and you want to charge the battery all the way to full, you can do it for that. But most of the time you're probably better off not charging the battery all the way to full, because this is slowed down a lot more than I expected to. I kind of knew that batteries don't charge as fast when they're close to full as they do when they're close to empty, but I did not realize that it was this much of a difference, because the rate has dropped to substantially less than half of the charging speed since I got here. So now down to 22 kilowatts. So I'm only taking 100 miles an hour of charge instead of 2 and 3 when I started. So it is now saying battery temperature low, and the charging rate is limited by low battery temperature. And it is dropped to 13 kilowatts. So at this point, it's not quite full, but I think I'm going to go ahead and stop charging, because I am now only getting 50 miles of range for every hour of charging. And the sun coming up is blocking my recording because of the glare. But to stop charging, you actually have to say stop charging and unlock the charge port, which I did not have to do when I rented the Nissan Leaf. And so now I have paid $6.08 to charge the car, which, I mean, I basically charged the battery halfway for $6. That is not bad. It took 18% of a charge to go a distance of about 36 miles from Spring to Friendswood. So that works out to about 200 miles of range on the car. It has a much longer charge window if you use a free charger, like the Volta here. EV charging has arrived. And it is free, and you get what you pay for because it is not as fast. The charge on here has gone up to 84% without any charging on my part. I have not plugged it in since the last one, and it was 80 when I unplugged it. So, something settled in the battery, not sure. So, because Tesla does not use the standard charger, you have to have an adapter, this here, to connect the Tesla to the standard SAE J1772 charger. And this adapter, which has the Tesla connector on one end and the standard on the other, connects to the standard charger that this mall and many others have available for free charging. Also, as you can see, the charging port closes automatically when I disconnect the charging cord. One thing I will say for this is it is great to have so many backup cameras. You have right behind you as well as to the left and right sides. Makes it easy to get in and out of a parking space. When you have light outside, having these gigantic sunroofs that basically cover the entire roof is a major asset. I have had several cars before that had sunroofs, but not the whole roof is glass. I like it. I have owned vehicles with sunroofs before, but I have never even rented a car where the sunroof is the entire roof. Like this. And I gotta tell you, it is very nice, especially when it's sunny and good weather. I like this a lot. One of the nice things, both in renting this Tesla Model 3 and the Nissan Leaf that I rented last summer, is that it was very nice weather the entire time I have had both vehicles. But what that one did not have, and this one does, is the whole roof is a sunroof. All of it. Front seat, back seat, whole thing. Sunroof. What this car has that no car that I have owned or rented before is the entire roof is glass. I have previously owned several cars with sunroofs. This is the first automobile I have ever driven where the entire roof is glass. And you have, I mean, I have had sunroofs before, but not the whole roof. Front seat and back seat. And when the weather is nice like this, it's a major asset. This car corners very well. Now that the traffic has finally died down on this farm to market road, not going real fast, but I am going around a lot of corners, and this car handles it very nicely. Driving on these back roads, one of the nice things is these regenerative brakes. You take your foot off the pedal, you practically never use the brake pedal. I've hardly had to use the brake pedal at all, because if you need to slow down because the cars in front of you are slowing down, we had traffic earlier, you just take your foot off the brake. The Tesla Model 3 is thought of as a city car, and it is good for that. But this farm-to-market road, constantly speeding up, slowing down, going around corners, really shows what a great car this is, because I hardly use the brake pedal at all. Just give it a little gas, take your foot off, car speeds up and slows down without having to use the brakes. And I would have to be using the brakes a lot, like right now, and I do not have to. Roads like this demonstrate just what great vehicles electric cars are. Since there is no engine to start driving a Tesla, you take the key, you hear that noise, it means you're ready to drive, you put the car in drive, and you can drive away. In addition to the backup camera that most cars have, the Tesla Model 3 also gives you side views. These come on when you are in drive and put your turn signal on. You get to see the left and right sides of the car, making it easier to change lanes. Rather than having a handle to pull to open the door, there is a button that you push to open the door. Since there is obviously no engine in an electric car, in the front there is a frunk instead of a trunk. There's a lot of room in the front seat. It is very comfortable. The back seat is much less so, but is still very much acceptable. This is standard for a car this size. The back seat is more than roomy enough. I'm 5'11" and I fit in here just fine. If the Tesla superchargers sold drinks, I wouldn't have to stop at the gas station to get one. For some reason, every time I get in and out of the Tesla, I screw up the floor mat and don't seem to be able to get it back. If I owned one of these, I'd probably have to get different floor mats. The other thing is, there are no handles to grab onto above the door. This hadn't occurred to me until my elderly father was trying to get in and out of here earlier. But on the plus side, one thing Tesla does absolutely right is that there is an enormous amount of storage space in the console. Note for Tesla, start selling soft drinks at your superchargers. The gas stations do. All you have to do to start a Tesla is put your key down and hit the brake pedal, and the car is ready to go. There's no actual engine to start. So I'm loving the backup cameras. But I still do say this car needs to have some kind of a physical touch controls for the climate and the audio. Even if just for those things. Even if you use the touch screen for everything else, it needs to have that. The amount of storage space available in a Tesla Model 3's trunk is very good. It's more than sufficient. And in addition, there is a small amount of space available in the front trunk, or frunk. But it is not nearly as substantial as this. This is very big for its size. There is even more room than you see at first glance in the Tesla's trunk, because there is a very large storage compartment underneath the trunk. Even the control to lock the doors is on the touch screen. That locks the doors, that unlocks them. I suppose the biggest downside to this car ultimately is ergonomics. You can get used to not having any gauges and reading everything off of the touchscreen, but having to use the touchscreen for everything, and I mean everything, locking and unlocking the doors, changing the audio or climate, and then not having door handles up here to grab to get in and out of the car, and not even having a handle to open the door. I mean, yes, it gives a futuristic look, and some of it really is with all the cameras, very futuristic, and there is a lot of storage space because of what's not there. But ultimately, it does not make it an easy car to operate. Driving the Tesla feels like driving a normal car. I mean, yes, it is electric, so you have regenerative braking, but overall, it is not that different. And you can get the same thing at a much lower price point with other electric vehicles on the market from Nissan or anyone else. And fundamentally, for its price point, it is just not worth it. The Tesla proprietary charger is another issue, because there are public charging stations all over the place, but they usually do not have this charger. They have either the standard SAE J1772 charger or the higher speed CCS or CHAdeMO chargers. This kind of restricts where you can get a charge. Yes, you can use the adapter, but it makes it easier if they were to use CCS or something like that. Ultimately, this is a really nice car, and I am very impressed with it. And if I had one, I would enjoy it very much. But is it a game changer, fundamentally so much better than all of the other electric cars on the market? No. And in their desire to be different, some of what they've done is not an improvement, and quite honestly, is not as good. I mean, even if their charger, if they think it is superior, there is a reality that the other chargers are standard, and not putting physical controls and having everything through the touchscreen is a nuisance and is of questionable safety. Honestly, it's a really nice car, but not one that I'm going to recommend. Believe it or not, there is a neutral. The light went off when the charging was finished. One of the things you notice when driving is at the top of the screen, there is a white line that gets longer as you accelerate that shows that you are using more power. And if you take your foot off of the accelerator and begin using regenerative braking, like here, you get a green line. The longer the green line, the more it is regenerating and the more it is slowing the car down. So as I accelerate, white line, take my foot off, you can get a gradual deceleration, you get a little bit of green, get a little bit more speed here. So now I take my foot off, slows down a lot of green. So I'm slowing down for a light here. Heavy deceleration, heavy charging. 151 miles of charging per hour is much better, even at only 43 kilowatts, than you can get on a home charger. At the supercharger, I'm getting 49 kilowatts of charge, giving me 159 approximately miles for every hour I am here, plus 3 kilowatt hours, 4 kilowatt hours that I've taken. So it tells me the rate of charge and how much charge I've actually received. And the amount that I'm getting per time seems to be going up a little, but not much. Whereas it was going down before, but that was a much longer charge duration. And I went from low to high, and it cannot absorb as much power as quickly when the battery is closer to a full charge. The Tesla supercharger in Giddings obviously charges at a much higher rate than the previous ones I had used. This is insane. I'm getting over 500 miles of range for every hour I charge. This is awesome. This is far better than anywhere I've previously charged. 125 kilowatts. The rate at which a car charges at a supercharger can vary radically. But at this charging station, I am getting a much higher speed than I've ever seen before. It was over 500 miles per hour of charge when I pulled in, and even as the battery fills up and it slows down, it is slowing down to a still very high, respectable 64 kilowatts. And only having half an hour of charging left is quite impressive. You really have to look around at how fast the charging stations work, because some of them are far better than others. Most charging stations have the charger up towards the front of the car so that you back in, but not all of them. Even at the higher speed superchargers, that even when you're this close to full, 96%, it is still charging over 100 miles of charge per hour, which is quite impressive. But even so, I still like it when they put the charging station next to a restaurant or a convenience store or somewhere that you can go in while you wait. So this place here is fantastic. I am charging at a high usage station and it only wants to charge me to 80%, which I'm not pleased with, but let me see if I can change this. I'm not certain how to change that. It is saying charge complete, but I'm only at 80%, and it is not giving me the option to increase limit. I guess this is a me not knowing how to do this, but they should give me an option somewhere. I'm moving the charge limit to 100%, but if I say start charging, it will not. The charger in Giddings is now saying high usage supercharger station, and charging limit set to 80% as well. It did not this morning. However, it let me manually override and select 100%, which the one in Austin did not. So there's that. What I have now established is that it is entirely possible to take a Tesla on a road trip by using the supercharger network. All you have to do is plan in advance where you are going to charge. You can look online and find which charging stations have the highest recharge speed by kilowatt hours. And unlike a conventional gasoline vehicle, you do have to plan your trip in advance of where you are going to stop and recharge. You cannot just drive and expect to find a gas station. You have to use the supercharger network to plan the trip. You can use other chargers, but you should not expect the same speed of recharge. Because this Volta station uses the standard SAE J1772, which the Tesla is not set up for, I'm going to have to use the adapter that is included with the car. Here I have it. And the car is lighting up blue as it detects it, and green, it is now charging. So I will receive a lower speed but free charging. So the lower speed means it will take 2 hours and 15 minutes to charge the car, which puts me beyond the 2-hour limit here. But it still means I will get most of a charge for free, which is fantastic. So once again, I take the charger out. The car closes the charging port. And I have to take this adapter off of the charger before I put putting the charger back. It says charging equipment not ready, and it has a learn more, but when I hit learn more, nothing happens, and it won't tell me why it's not ready or what I need to do about it. Once again, I have a ready to charge, and charging equipment may not be ready, but not telling me what the problem is. So it tells me ready to charge, charging equipment not ready, and I say learn more. It says ready to charge, charging equipment not ready, learn more, and I get nothing. The car says ready to charge and is not charging. But based on the fact that the other electric cars plugged in here are also not charging, I'm suspicious that this is the charging station and not the car itself. And after all of that, saying the car was ready to charge but wouldn't charge, it is actually charging. So when you're ready to go, put your foot on the brake and push the power button. Move the shifter to the left and forward, placing the car in reverse. Drive is in the bottom position. The electric motor does a great job going up a hill. The car easily maintains a cruise. The acceleration is noticeably better at lower speeds than it is at higher speeds, but it still is good enough. The car has extremely good acceleration at low speeds, but at high speeds, it's still good. It's not great, but this is actually a very fast car, surprisingly. Overall, I have been very impressed with this car. It is very intelligently laid out, easy to work with, handles nicely, corners well, has good acceleration, and the range is very good for a car its size and class. I mean, certainly there are longer range Teslas and other electric cars, Lucid, that have much longer ranges. but in a reasonable price point, this is actually impressive. To stop the car, you just push the power button. Turns the car off, car goes straight into park. Very easy. The electric motor does well going up a hill. I am now leaving the Volta station where I got a free charge, although it did not charge it very much. The SAE J1772 chargers just are not as fast as the chargers that I was using at EVgo. But I had to pay for those, and this was free. And you know what? There is a certain appeal to free. And there's an appeal for businesses because customers with electric cars are more likely to go visit a business if they can get their car charged for free. So I understand why businesses want to put these free chargers. Driving an electric car does require a little more planning if you're going a long distance, because you have to stop and figure out where you're going to be able to recharge. And you want to be able to use the higher speed chargers. And therefore, you have to plan where you're going to go. Now, the map on here will show me where the nearest charging stations are, and you can select that you only want to see the higher speed chargers. You can also select you only want to see free chargers. But you get what you pay for, and if you use the free chargers, you're not going to be able to charge the car as fast. So it requires a little bit of work. However, just driving around California here, this car has enough charge, it can go enough range. I don't have to charge very often, and when I do, if I use the high-speed chargers, and there are a lot of them around, it charges very fast. So it really has not been a problem. Now I'm doing something weird here. I am driving an electric car and I am pulling into a gas station. Now this is because I want to get a soda, but it's kind of odd that I pull an electric car into a gas station. People might think that's weird, and they'd be right. I have arrived at the Plains of Fame Air Museum at Chino Airport. All I have to do is turn the car off. When driving on a highway like this is Highway 210, the car is not as smooth as I would expect it to be. I'm not sure if that is due to it being a lighter weight vehicle. I have no idea, but you would expect this car to be heavier. I mean, it does have an electric battery, but it does not have an engine. And I'm sure the electric motor weighs less than an engine would. So I'm not exactly sure what the weight would be. But it seems to not be particularly smooth. All in all, I would give this car a very favorable rating, but one thing they need to work on is how smooth the ride is on a highway. Now, unlike some of the previous roads I went on, this one is in very good road. This is a very good highway, and it's smooth enough, but most of the cars that I'm used to would be smoother than this. I don't know what effect the weight of the vehicle has on the smoothness of the ride, but it's not great. That's one drawback of this car. It seems to vibrate a lot. Now, I'm not driving on the best roads right at the moment, but departing from an Amazon Fresh, I have never been in one before. No surprise that I was able to charge my vehicle for free here, although being that it was one of the Type 2 chargers, really picked up very little charge. But that's okay, I didn't need it. I have already criticized Tesla's decision to put virtually everything on the touchscreen, but one that you might not guess relates to the glove box. The glove box is opened through the touchscreen, and instead of putting a lock on it like older cars used to have where you put the key in and turn to open the glove box, they put a PIN number. It seems modern and futuristic, I'm sure, but it is also not necessarily the most practical way to do this. A simple handle to open the glove box is easy, and this is not easy. Shutting the car off with just a button. Car puts itself in park. This time I nailed it. This time perfect. This time I nailed it. I stopped exactly where I wanted to, a reasonable distance from the car in front of me, purely on momentum and e-braking through the e-pedal. So all of that was converted to electricity. There is a gas station right there, and regular unleaded is over $6 a gallon. $6.19 a gallon for regular gas. Yeah, if I lived here, I absolutely would have to have an electric car. Diesel is not that much more. Diesel is only $6.69. Proportionally, that's not that much more. I expected it to be closer to $7. Everybody who has never driven an electric car should do so at least once. It's a lot of fun. It really is. I will probably eventually own one. The more time goes on, the more charging stations are built, the more that the infrastructure is present to make it conducive to having one. As time goes on and there are more charging stations and there's more infrastructure to accommodate it, I will probably eventually own an electric car. I just not quite there yet, but it is the future. We will all eventually be driving electric. And based on my experience this week, I kind of like it. I really do. This has been a lot of fun. I wasn't sure I'd like it, but I do. I came into it with an open mind, and it paid off. Now we are going to try this again. The e-pedal. I'm going to take my foot off of the accelerator at this point now, and once again I did it too soon, so there's no accelerator. I'm very tech savvy and I'm a fast learner, and I can get this fairly quickly. Somebody who's not used to it, it could take a while to get used to. I expect when I get home, going back to a diesel car, I will probably unlearn this real quick. See, I'm going to take the E-pedal off because I'm going down a hill and I can just roll. Let gravity do all the work. If I had to hit them... Ordinarily, if I took my foot off of the accelerator, in a flat environment like where I live in Texas, I think the E-pedal would just stay on. But here, there are some times when you want to be able to just use gravity and not have the car immediately slow down and charge the battery when you're trying to just coast. Fortunately for me, there are plentiful charging stations here in California. There are plenty in Texas as well, but not quite as many. Coming up to a red light, take my foot off the accelerator. I made it all the way to Bonds without touching the brakes. I bet you I make it all the way back without touching the brakes. You know, I may have to get one of these. Once again, going down the hill, turning the E-pedal off. I'm basically coasting. Turning the E-pedal back on to slow down to make my corner. Round trip without touching the brakes. So because Tesla wants you to do everything through the touchscreen, you have controls here for your lights, your mirrors, your window lock. You have the steering controls here. If you want to move your steering wheel, you can adjust your mirrors in the app. Here you can adjust your acceleration, standard and chill, your steering mode, and your stopping mode. Now they use terminology like chill, creep, roll. This is where you disconnect your charging cord if you are finished charging, which I am not. The autopilot controls for your locks. If you want to put child locks on the back doors, or you want to lock your windows so people can't roll them down. There are controls for your lights, the lights inside the car, the headlights. The controls for this display, recording things from your trips. This is basically trip odometer and such. Navigation controls, safety, and interestingly, in the safety, you have the ability to turn the screen off. Your service, your owner's manual, you can see what your tire pressure is, and down here we have the ability to update the software, which is not available right now, but that's fine. In addition to the backup cameras, you also have a forward camera, which you can use to see what you would see looking out the window, but it does have the ability to record. One useful thing is you do have the ability to go back and look at historical video footage that your car has recorded when you've been driving in the past. If you need to go look at something and recapture video of something that you observed that happened that you want to use. Now you can put a dash cam in a car easily, and I have one and I've used it to record some of this video, but having it built into the car is a nice feature. So when I was driving the car and I could not adjust the braking, it is now that I am parked letting me do that. I can put it on creep, which is what it was on all along, roll, and hold. It allows me to do that. But it would be very helpful if it would It lets me adjust the acceleration and steering mode when I'm driving, but I was not able to adjust the stopping mode when I was driving, and it would be very helpful if it would allow me to do that. So when I change the stopping mode to hold, now I have true one-pedal driving, and I can actually drive the car. When I take my foot off the accelerator, it slows down to a complete stop, and I can actually stop the car without ever touching the brake. This is like what the Nissan Leaf did with the e-pedal. And I highly recommend this. If you are going to drive a Tesla Model 3, set your stopping mode to hold. It just makes it easier to work with. When you take your foot off the brake, it does not move forward until you hit the accelerator. I know Tesla is not the only car company that puts wireless chargers in the cars. That's going to become more and more common. But it works great, and it is very useful and helpful to have that right here where you can get at it easily on the console. cannot possibly be the only person to have ever brought an electric car to a gas station. But until the car charging places start selling sodas, that's what I'm gonna do. So this is a Tesla Model 3 that I have rented from Hertz. This is the extended range version. One of the issues that this Tesla has is that this screen, which is basically a large tablet, is the only way of controlling quite a few things. The audio and the climate control is all controlled from this. And since there are no knobs and buttons down here that you can grab by touch, it necessitates that you take your eyes off the road in order to do things. This is a safety issue. I've come to find that this screen here is very difficult to use without taking your eyes off the road. Basically, it is impossible. There is no way to use this without looking at it instead of looking at the road. Usually, if you had buttons and knobs, you get used to where they are. You can do it by touch. You can turn up the air conditioning or turn on the heat or turn up or down the audio volume, change the station, whatever. You can do it by touch. This you cannot. At first glance, by comparison with the Nissan Leaf I rented last summer, there are certainly a lot less controls. There was the E-pedal button and the shifter on the console that the Nissan Leaf had, and this does not. Any settings you want to change, such as the pedal for the regenerative braking, is all done on the touch screen. See, the pedals and steering, you have the same options, but they're not as quick and convenient as a little thing you can just reach down and push. You have to navigate through the menu to get to it, which is not very easy to do while you're driving. I know it sounds odd that I'm actually giving a much higher opinion to a less expensive vehicle, but it is what it is. The acceleration on this car is also superior to the Nissan Leaf, but not as much as you would expect it to be. The other difference I notice with the regenerative braking on the Tesla is that the Nissan Leaf would bring the car to a complete stop purely on regenerative braking. And I could drive large distances without ever touching the brake pedal at all. And maybe it just happens to be how this thing is set. I mean, you do have different options on here, but I have to use the brake considerably more on the Tesla, it seems, than on the Nissan, and I am driving in a completely flat part of Texas that, unlike the hills in California, I guess what I want to adjust on here is the stopping mode. It has three options: creep, roll, and hold, but it will not let me change it, and it is set on creep. For this being a more expensive vehicle than the Nissan Leaf, it does not drive or ride any smoother. The steering is no better. It's not really that different, actually. The acceleration is a little better, but it is still a relatively lightweight vehicle, and it handles like a smaller car. It handles more like a Chevy Cruze than it does like a BMW 3 Series. I mean, if you want to compare, it lacks the high-end feel that you would expect from a car like this. In addition to having to reach over here to make any changes, if you want to change the settings on the climate, or you want to change the settings on the audio, you have to do it through here. There are also no instruments in front of you. So if you want to see how much battery life you have left, or how fast you're going, which is something you need to check fairly frequently, is how fast you're going, you have to look at this screen. This tablet is your one-stop shop for everything. And ergonomically, this just does not work. I mean, looking straight ahead to drive the car, you can look down a little to see how fast you're going. Look back up, no big deal. Putting it over here as the only place to see it is just not a good layout. It really is not. I will say, having this, basically the entire roof is a sunroof, is kind of nice. Because basically anywhere you go, you have full visibility above. I've had sunroofs before, but they were never the whole roof. And there's separate roofs for the front seat and the back seat, as you can see. So I am in traffic right now, but I'm about to be getting on the freeway. We will see how this goes. I would think that being a higher end car, it would do much better than the Nissan Leaf did. But so far, there are a lot of things that are very innovative about this car. But overall, from a pure usability, practicality point of view, I drastically prefer the Nissan Leaf. Overall, comparing this car to the far less expensive Nissan Leaf, is this a better vehicle? That depends on your perspective. I mean, while having this large tablet here as your only control mechanism, to me is a lot less practical than having actual buttons and knobs. I do like the side view cameras when you put the turn signal on, and I do like having the sunroof over the whole car. Is it worth the extra money? No. It just is not. So I am now going about just over 60 miles an hour. That's around 100 kilometers per hour. And at this speed, this car does give more of a high-end luxury car feel than the Nissan did. At lower speeds in traffic, other than the better acceleration, this car was not that different from the Nissan Leaf, but at higher speeds, cruising down the freeway, you can really tell the difference. This car does have a stiffer feel to it, which is a good thing when you're driving on the freeway. I would say that Tesla builds a nice product, and you would think that I, as an IT guy, I am a computer professional. First and foremost, I'm a computer guy. You would think that I would, of anybody, I would be the one who would like a car that is built like a computer. But from a practicality point of view, this is not a computer. This is a car. And you need to be able to operate it like a car. You need to be able to reach down and grab things by touch so that you keep your eye on the road. Need to be able to do that, and the fact that I have to look at the screen to change anything is a problem. And if you are going to drive a Tesla, this is how it is going to be. Honest opinion, I like the Nissan Leaf better. If I had to pick between the two, I like the Nissan Leaf better. I just do. I see the appeal of this. I like this. If this was my car, I would enjoy it. I would get used to this. But the Nissan is just more practical. And quite honestly, I had more fun with it. There are certain features on here I like very much, but the Nissan was the more practical option. And we're going to try some acceleration here. Now see, the Nissan Leaf could not have done that. The Nissan Leaf's acceleration from a complete stop or from very, very slow was very good, and as you accelerate and as you get to higher speeds, the acceleration tapers off. But even from a complete stop, the acceleration was not as good. But it was still very good. It was just not quite as good, but it was still very good. This is it's better. Is it worth the price? Probably not. But is it better? Yes. I mean, for the average driver, you do not need rocket ship level of acceleration. I mean, this is not an F-16, and quite honestly, I mean, this is an impressive car from a technical point of view. But the Nissan Leaf was more than sufficient acceleration. It was actually surprisingly good. Where this is superior is if you were in a situation where you really needed to pass somebody, or you really needed to get over. This car has a level of power that the other did not, and especially as you get to higher speeds, the difference becomes much more noticeable. Okay, I'm going to make a very tight corner here in sport mode. Now I am switching to comfort, and I'm going to go around another corner up here, and we will see how this compares. Definitely softer, definitely not as firm, but not a huge difference. Any other car on the road, you have knobs and buttons for the climate control and for the audio, whatever. On the Tesla Model 3, the only thing you have is a built-in touchscreen, basically a large tablet. The problem with this is you cannot do anything by touch. You actually have to look away from where you are going to do what you are going to do on the screen. You want to change the station, you want to adjust the temperature, you have to look away from the road. If you do this when you're at a light, no problem. But I can adjust the AC or change the radio or whatever by touch. With a new car, it takes a while to get used to where it is, but eventually you do. This is about the only car that I have ever driven that is like this. Maybe that takes a while to get used to, I'm not sure, but because you cannot do it by touch, you do have to look. It is a distraction. So, I have safety concerns. The layout of the menus is pretty good. It generally is very easy to find whatever you are looking for, so no complaints about the layout, but it is not something that most people are used to have to go through menus to change anything on your car. People are generally used to buttons and knobs, and cars are getting more like this. Most automobiles now have some kind of a menu system for settings. Tesla takes it to a whole new level by having that be pretty much everything. But if you are used to that with a smartphone or a tablet, you're used to this now for the car. It is very easy to do. Probably any teenager that you gave a Tesla as their first car would have no trouble figuring it out. Probably most of them are helping their parents do it. Overall, the handling on this car is very good. It is not European sports sedan good, but it is still a very nice car to drive in traffic. I'm maneuvering around cars right now, and it handles very, very nicely. I mean, the Tesla is a status symbol, and there's a reason for that. I mean, it is a high-end car. Does it drive like the ultimate driving machine? No. But it still is very nice for its price point. This car actually is a lot of fun to drive. It is very responsive. The steering is good. The brakes are good. The regenerative braking is not as aggressive as the regenerative braking with the e-pedal was in the Nissan Leaf. But it's still, you use your brakes a whole lot less than you would in most other cars. driving this in a mix of traffic, country roads, freeways, it drives very, very nicely. I am very pleased with it. Even at higher speeds, when you punch it, you've got the acceleration, but it is not nearly as good as it is at lower speeds. The thing about driving at higher speeds, you're used to having a speedometer right in front of you, and instead it is off to the side on the screen. Fortunately, they put it on the correct side of the screen, so it is still right in your field of vision, but putting it in the top left corner was the correct thing to do. So unlike the freeway back there, this is a Texas farm-to-market road, and as such, it is a lot less smooth. There are a lot of curves, and the speed is much lower. And on this kind of road here, this Tesla really shines. It corners very well. When you get out of the corner, it accelerates very well on the straightaways, even though it's much slower speed than the freeway. But on the freeway, generally I'm maintaining a constant speed. The speed on here is constantly changing. And when I come up to a corner and I take my foot off the accelerator, the regenerative braking does not slow it down as much as the Nissan Leaf did, and that probably is actually a good thing for this specific road. In traffic, I'm probably better off with the heavier deceleration. And I'm supposed to be able to change that on here, but the menu is not letting me. So, but nonetheless, this road, more than any others, I think that the Tesla Model 3 really shines. There are a lot of stops on these farm-to-market roads because you only have one lane each way, and whenever anybody needs to stop to turn or pull into one of these places here, and thus you get a lot of acceleration and deceleration, and the Tesla speeds up and slows down. That is probably one of its best selling points, is how well it handles that. I think more so than inner city traffic and more so than freeways, these farm-to-market roads are where the Tesla really shines. Despite the way Teslas are very often talked about, and I know Tesla doesn't really advertise like other car companies do, but despite the buzz about them, this car really handles more like a luxury car and less like a sports sedan. And what I mean by that is it handles more like a Lexus or a Cadillac and less like a BMW. I mean, as a previous BMW owner, a 3 Series, when I rented a Tesla Model 3, I expected it to kind of handle in a very similar manner, and it does not. It handles more like a luxury car and less like a sports sedan. I mean, driving this, it corners like a car that is larger and heavier than it really is. That is not a criticism. Slowing down, taking a corner, purely on regenerative braking. Didn't touch the brake pedal to go around that corner. Purely take my foot off the accelerator and slow down. So any energy that was used to accelerate, at least some of it got put back in. That right there is probably the greatest advantage that an electric car has. Or a hybrid for that matter, but overall, you have more battery capacity in the electric car to absorb it. Although, let's be real, the amount of power absorbed is not that enormous. But it does save wear and tear on the brake pads. Overall, a very good thing. I think the regenerative braking is probably one of the best selling points for an electric car. Now I'm getting into some traffic, so I'm slowing down entirely using the regenerative braking without touching the brake pedal. As is typical for an electric car, I will probably be able to do this without using the brake at all, or very little. Gentle acceleration, followed by taking my foot off the accelerator and just letting the brakes handle it. The Nissan Leaf had a convenient e-pedal you could just turn on and off. You could do it by touch. You didn't even have to look. And nothing on this car can be done by touch. You have to do everything through the touch screen, and it requires you to look. But, and I actually did have to use the brake pedal there a little. But, because we are on flat ground, probably there's no reason to turn the e-pedal off if I had such a button. But not including it is a deficiency. That is something that should be readily available here. Driving this car in traffic, I do not get to take advantage of the rapid acceleration I get from the electric motor, but I do get to make ample use of the regenerative braking to drastically reduce the amount of power I have to use to get across Houston. And quite honestly, I am using the brake pedal more than I would expect to or like to, but not as much as I would with a combustion engine. So most of the deceleration is being handled by the regenerative braking. And with the Nissan Leaf, when I took my foot off the accelerator, the car stayed still until I hit the accelerator pedal. This car, if I take my foot off the brake, it starts moving forward like a gasoline car would. Not entirely a fair comparison, because I'm comparing Houston traffic to Los Angeles traffic, which are honestly very similar, but not exactly the same. Nonetheless, this car does handle very nicely. Since I left the charging station, I've only used about 1% of the battery, and I've covered a reasonable distance. The navigation system in the Tesla allows me to type while the vehicle is in motion, which my Google Maps on my Chevrolet does not. I do not know why it is recommending I go around the Beltway, but I am going to go ahead and do as it recommends. That may be due to traffic, but it will give me an opportunity to take this car over the Ship Channel Bridge, which is rather steep. We'll see how that goes. I now see why it did that. Apparently, according to the Amber Alert sign, there is a major accident up ahead. It is routing me around it. So I see why it did what it did. Yeah, if this is the way Interstate 45 is going to be, I guess the computer knows what it's doing, recommending that I go around the Beltway.
In 1 mile, take exit 60B on the right onto Texas 8 Beltway east toward Bush Intercontinental Airport.
So it looks, in typical Houston fashion, like we have a wreck right here. Not the one at Greens Road that the sign was informing me of. So there may actually be 2 wrecks. And that would be why the traffic is what it is. And as a consequence, everybody's trying to get into this lane. So that is giving me my demonstration of driving a Tesla in traffic right here, right now. That would also be why there are all these fire trucks here. Hope nobody got hurt. Oh, it does not look that bad. And now the traffic clears.
Now take exit 60B on the right. In 1,000 feet, take the Texas 8 Beltway east ramp on the left toward Bush Intercontinental Airport. Now take the Texas 8 Beltway east ramp on the left.
Nice view of Greens Point Mall. Don't know if that's showing up on the video. But this section of the Beltway near George Bush Intercontinental Airport seems to be wide open. No traffic. I'm now passing the exit for George H.W. Bush Intercontinental Airport. And I still have the Beltway basically to myself around here. I mean, there are other cars on the road. And a Spirit Airlines Airbus A320 flying over me just took off. And I have only used now 5% of the charge, gone from 97% to 92%. through all of that.
In 1 mile, keep left to stay on Texas 8 Beltway East.
I do not know why the navigation needs to tell me to keep going where I'm going. Telling me not to exit. Well, I would not have exited until it told me to exit. Seems unnecessary. But if it just wants to give me confirmation, that's fine.
Now keep left to stay on Texas 8 Beltway East.
Which I was going to do anyway. So I am now going over the Ship Channel Bridge. This is without a doubt the steepest uphill I have taken the Tesla on since I have had it. I never doubted this thing would do well going up a hill, and I'm doing it at a constant rate of speed. But it seems to be doing pretty well. I mean, this is a major roadway, so every car on the road can do it. But I'm hardly having to touch the accelerator to maintain speed up a steep hill. What will be interesting is I'm going to slow down coming down. I'm not completely sure how the regenerative braking is going to handle. Yeah, see, it wants to apply more than I need, so I have to give it go down this hill in neutral with no trouble at all. In a combustion car, I'm not saying to do that, but and now coming off this hill, going up a little bit again, but not much. Going to go around a corner. Downhill again. No power is necessary to do that. But I have to keep my foot on the accelerator just so that I do not kick in the regenerative braking. Now uphill again. So I'm barely touching the accelerator through any of this. Basically maintains speed with very little change in how much power I'm applying. Well, I am now traveling from two locations that are both on interstates. I am taking this interstate, which is I-45, until I reach Interstate 10. I could go around 610, but I'm not going to because traffic usually around this time of day is pretty bad on the west side. So I'm going to take Interstate 45 all the way to Interstate 10. And it should be pretty well wide open, so this should be nothing but freeway driving. And we will see how the car performs, and also we shall see how the range holds up, because I'm traveling a substantial distance, so we will see how much of the power that I just picked up charging is spent based on how it did this morning coming down here, it should be pretty good. So the traffic is worse than I thought, so we are getting to take advantage of the regenerative braking again. I do like the fact that the cruise control on this car is set up in such a way that if I was using it back there and a car comes in front of me and slows down, the cruise control adjusts and slows me down. So I didn't even have to change it, which I would have, but I do love these side cameras when I change lanes. As with any time you try to video something with a car driving in a major city, I am being thwarted by traffic. Downtown at straight up noon, what did I expect? Lunch hour traffic. At least I'm not burning any gas while I sit here and idle. No, not idling, moving. Just 11 miles an hour. So I am about to get off of Interstate 45 onto Interstate 10. Right here. Interesting to see how the adaptive cruise control handles that if I were running on cruise control, but unfortunately traffic is not going to allow for that. I may have to test that some other time. This whole freeway interchange is operating at, there is no overpass, so this is at ground level. Smooth transition. I'm now on Interstate 10, heading west. Would have been easy in any car. I am trying to get off of Interstate 10 here, and this side view camera, really, I'm not used to using it, and my instinct is to still look visually to confirm, but this is great. It really is. And now I'm going to be using the U-turn here. So the other side view camera gets slowing down without touching the brake pedal and having a wonderful side view. I see the appeal. I really do. I get it. And getting over to the other side of the feeder road. These side view cameras are fantastic. So I charged the battery this morning, and that was in spring, and I've driven it all the way down to Clear Lake, all the way across Houston to the west side, and I'm now going home, and I still have a little over 2/3 of a charge. And I did get a little power at Clear Lake at Baybrook Mall, but not a lot. So the range on this car, probably in traffic like I've done today, at the speeds I've driven today, the range is probably somewhere in the ballpark of a little over 200 miles. But I suppose on a long distance road trip it might be a little better. I'm not sure. This is all on flat terrain except for freeway overpasses, but the range is probably not as good as the idealized estimates they advertise, but the range is certainly good enough. It's sufficient. I'm going to make it all the way to Tomball before I get down to 2/3 charge. Apparently not quite. I am now passing Willowbrook Mall. It is directly off to my right, and I have now reached 67%. So 2/3 of the battery got me that far. 1/3 used, 2/3 left. So 1/3 of the charge goes this far. Not quite advertised, but still good enough. I am now at 66% charged, and I am about to pass what used to be the Compact headquarters on 249, which you can see out the window here. So the range is adequate, but I am just not convinced that it is drastically better than the Nissan Leaf was. Because that was in a very hilly environment in California, and I seem to be able to do pretty good distance on a charge. So this is the third time that I have come up this farm to market road, and the first time in the Tesla that I have encountered a traffic jam. So the last two times that I drove this Tesla up this farm to market road here, I got here and there was no traffic. The time of day is a little different. This is a little earlier, but this time I am encountering a lot of traffic. Actually. So I'm barely moving, but not having to use the brake pedal at all, which is nice. See how far we can go with no brake pedal. So today I'm definitely not moving as fast on this FM, but not having to use the brake pedal is a major asset. Able to slow down, speed up, slow down, speed up. At lower speeds, this car really did drive a lot like the Nissan Leaf. But you can see at higher speeds, it does drive a lot better. So now that I'm driving at a higher rate of speed, you can tell the difference, but the difference is not that significant. The steering on this car is very stiff, but it is adjustable. I like that. I mean, there are certain, when you spend more money to get a higher end car, there are certain perks. And you get what you pay for up to a certain extent. And I like that, but ultimately, it's not as big of an improvement as you would expect it to be. In Texas, we have farm-to-market roads, and I am about to get off of this freeway and onto one of the farm-to-market roads, and we can try this on a more rural country road and see how this car does. Yeah, going around this corner in standard, I think of the options, I like this one the best, but it is a minor preference. The difference is just not that significant. Take your foot off the accelerator, the car slows down pretty fast, but does not seem to slow down nearly as fast as the Nissan did. The interior of the Tesla Model 3 has plenty of room. Not just comfort, tons of storage space. Tesla's navigation is better than the navigation that was in the Nissan Leaf. The navigation in this Tesla is fantastic. I am used to using Google Maps, which is also very good. I have that in my car, but this works very well. And if you look for a Tesla supercharger to recharge at, it shows you those, but it also shows you non-Tesla charging stations that may be more convenient, depending on where you are. As a comparison of Tesla versus Nissan Leaf, it really is not a fair comparison because I rented the Nissan in California and I am driving this Tesla right now in Texas. So I'm comparing completely flat to hilly, mountainous. I will say that Tesla's navigation is fantastic. When you are driving on the freeway, it does not drive like an electric car. When you are driving at lower speeds, it does. It is much more responsive. When you put the pedal down at low speeds, it accelerates a lot faster than a combustion engine could. But when you're driving on the freeway, it drives like a gasoline car does. Much like with Google Maps, the Tesla navigation shows you exactly what the traffic is where you are right now, and it helps you plan your route based on the current traffic situation. Does it do it better than Google Maps? No. But it is still very good. I definitely like the steering the best in standard mode, better than sport or comfort. This car, it handles a lot more like a luxury car and less like a sports car. From a complete dead stop, the acceleration on this car is not drastically better than the Nissan Leaf, but if you are already moving at a fair rate of speed and you want to accelerate, it is. The acceleration is much better. So 0 to 30, better than the Leaf? Yes. Drastically? No. 30 to 60? Much better acceleration in the Tesla than in the Nissan. Overall, it takes a little while to get used to, but once you get used to it, it actually is a very easy car to drive. Very different from what most people are used to, but there is nothing fundamentally wrong with thinking outside the box when you're designing a car. The placement of the cruise control on here is a little different from what most people are used to, putting it on the shifter. So you put the shifter down to put the car in drive, but then you push it again to set the cruise control. Like that. And push it up to turn it off. So I'm sitting here at this supercharger charging my car, and the speed is slowed down a lot, but it's still charging fast enough. It's just not as fast as I would ideally like. The traffic right now is very light, so I'm not getting an opportunity to test this in stop and go bumper to bumper traffic, although I suspect that I will when I get close to downtown. But for right now, traffic is moving below the speed limit, but not much below. If it's like this, it shouldn't be a very difficult drive. This is honestly too easy. It would be nice if there would be a little more traffic so I can test this. So I'm now going to re-engage the cruise control. Traveling at a constant speed on the interstate for a while here. So I'm re-engaging the cruise control. Adjusts if it needs to. It may not need to here. So now to stop the charging, I have to hit stop charging and then unlock the charge port. I consider that an unnecessary step, but they want me to do it, so I do. I am once again at a mall, and I have gotten a surprising amount of charge for free in the limited time that I was here. Probably less than an hour, and I've gotten apparently about 7 kilowatt hours out of the charge. I'm not sure exactly how long I was here, 45 minutes, less than an hour. And I've managed to get, it says I'm getting 8 kilowatts, which works out to about 7 kilowatt hours that I've gotten. So this is surprising that I got this much, but I'm pleased. The car is not fully charged, but it is approaching its limit. I have 93% charge now, and impressive that I got as much as I did. One clear advantage that the Nissan Leaf had over the Tesla is the E-pedal button right here where you can get at it easily. Because on some of these roads here, I would like to be able to coast. I would like to be able to take my foot off the accelerator and not consume any power, but not have the car slow down to recharge the battery. A lot of driving, in fact most driving, the regenerative braking is an absolutely wonderful thing. But I do not want to have to go through all these menus to turn it off and turn it back on. I got used to the idea that I could coast, and then when I was ready to slow down, push the E-pedal and get the regenerative braking back real fast. Having to do everything through an app on the touchscreen is not helpful. It really is not. What I do know is that the Nissan Leaf last summer never had any trouble with a Volta charger. Never got a whole lot of a charge out of one, but it never had a problem taking what was available. So for the second time now, I have had trouble getting the Tesla to charge on a Volta charger. Gives me an error but does not tell me what is wrong. I do not really need a charge right now, but what I am going to do is I'm going to go down the street here. I have reason to go down to this shopping center anyway, and they have a Blink charger, and I have never tried one of those, so we will see how that goes. I do not really need a charge right now, so if I do not get one, it is no problem. So to start the car, put the key there, put the car in reverse, backup cameras show me behind and to the side. Driver's door is open. No, it's not, but map shows me where I am. As is typical with an electric car, it is very quiet. Get plenty of road noise, but no noise from any kind of an engine. Quieter than the Nissan, but I'm not sure if that is just a difference in the road, what that is. Having the speed in this corner was a perfect touch. If they're going to make you use this tablet as your only means of control, since there are no gauges, there's no speedometer. It took me a while to find where the odometer was. This has a little over 17,000 miles on it. To make a 3-point turn here. This car has a reasonably good turning circle. But not fantastic. They need to work on the ergonomics. You need to have buttons and knobs here you can get by touch to change the radio station or to adjust the temperature, and not having instrument gauges. I mean, it gives you your speed and how much battery charge you have right here where it is easy to see. So it certainly is functional, but it is not what people are used to, and quite honestly, it is a safety issue. Anytime I want to adjust the temperature or having to actually look, because you cannot operate this by touch. If there were buttons you could push, you could do it by touch. If there were knobs, you could do it by touch. This cannot be done by touch. And that is a design issue that they need to address. It makes it look futuristic, but at the expense of practicality. And see, that is where, from a purely functional, practical point of view, the Nissan Leaf was a better car. Because the Nissan Leaf, you operate it like a normal car. You have buttons and knobs, and you can just reach over and do what you want to do. You want to warm it up and cool it off, you want to change the station, just reach over and grab it, you can do it by touch. This car, everything is a menu, everything is an app. Everything you want to go through, there are menus. It's like working a smartphone. And people are used to that because of smartphones and tablets, but from a purely practical point of view, this is not a tablet computer. I should not be using a tablet computer to operate it. I mean, this does not need to be a commercial airliner with a button in it for everything, but practicality dictates that there are better ways to handle this. I mean, ultimately, this is a car. It needs to be operated like a car. So let's try making a U-turn here in the middle of the road, see how the turning circle does. It does very nicely. In that regard, it is similar to the Nissan Leaf.